Hello everyone, welcome to Bajiro IAS Academy. See, like every day, today also we will discuss some of the most relevant and very important news articles covered in the Hindu newspaper, right? So these are the list of important news articles which are given in the Hindu newspaper, right? So these news articles are very important for mains exam perspective. So the first news article is it is a new assault on India's liberty, right? So this is particularly in the context of recently issued IT rules by the government. Okay, so recently issued IT rules, how they are contradictory to the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Indian Constitution in Article 19(1)(a), in Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution. So, in this context, we will discuss this article in a very detailed way. So, the next news article is India UAE cooperation to show regional food security, right? So, India is traditionally known for agriculture and food export. So, therefore, UAE has been trying to build cooperation with India in the area of food security, right? So in this context we will also discuss what are the capabilities of India in terms of food export potential, and how UAE is looking towards India for possible food security of that country. And the next news article is India Russia ties. So India Russia ties are very important because Russia is one of the major defense supplier for India, and in the recent past Russia has also become a major supplier of hydrocarbons to India. So, therefore, in the context, we will also analyze and understand India Russia ties. So, we also have some important news articles for prelims perspective. So, they are conservationists in Sri Lanka slam plan to export monkeys to China. Okay, so and the next news article, Union Cabinet give note for 6,000 crore of quantum mission. This is particularly with respect to quantum computing, quantum uh, and quantum communication. Okay, so the next news article will be India's population to edge ahead of China's by 2023. This is by UN Population Fund. Okay, so India to emerge as the most populous country by the mid of 2023, overtaking China. So these are all very important news article, right? So we'll try and understand all these articles in a very detailed way. So the first news article is about the newly issued amendments to IT rules. Okay, the government issued amendments to the IT rules 2023. So the IT rules says that the government will have a fact check unit. Okay, the government will appoint a fact check unit to decide whether a particular news is fake news or not. Okay, so if the fact check unit flagged a particular piece of news is a fake news, then the government directs, right? So if the fact check unit flagged a particular piece of information as fake news, then the government will direct the intermediary, right? The government will direct the intermediary to take down the information or take down the content which is flagged as fake news, right? So in this context, the author saying that the government arbitrarily consider information or consider content as uh, fake news. So, therefore, it effectively curbs individual fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, right? So, apart from that, the newly issued IT Rules Amendment 2020-2023 are also an executive diktat, and they are not issued through a legislation or not passed through a comprehensive legislation. So therefore, there is a huge scope for misuse of these provisions by the executive. Okay, so this article entirely discusses about the arbitrariness of the IT rules 2023 and how they are violating Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution and what needs to be done. Okay, so let's understand the IT rules. Okay, uh, first, government in the year 2021 issued IT rules. The IT rules are otherwise called as Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code rules. So they are otherwise known as IT rules. Okay, and recently the government made certain amendments to the IT rules. So those amendments come under IT rules 2023. Okay, so what IT rules 2023 says, as we already discussed, these rules say that if a particular intermediary have fake news, if a particular intermediary hosts fake news in its website, then the government will direct the intermediary to take down the fake news. Okay, so if it does not take down the fake news, already guaranteed legal immunity, already guaranteed legal immunity to those intermediaries will be taken away, will be stripped off. Okay, so this amendment says that fake news, uh, first, the fact check unit. In this case, the fact check unit is Press Information Bureau. Okay, the Press Information Bureau is a fact check unit, and this unit will identify the false or misleading content online. Okay, so this fact check unit will identify false and misleading online content. Now, social media intermediaries, if they fail to prevent users from hosting or publishing information that have been flagged as false information by this fact check unit, then the safe harbor, earlier safe harbor is being provided to these intermediaries, right? So what this safe harbor says, the safe harbor is protection against criminal prosecution will be uh, safe harbor is protection against criminal prosecution. Now if an intermediary have a fake news, if an intermediary hosts fake news, then their safe harbor will be withdrawn by the government. Okay, so in this context, the author has been saying that this particular diktat has been violating Article 19(1)(a) that provides freedom of speech and expression to every individual by the Constitution of India. So what will be the consequence of this move by the government? So the consequence include the union government will gets to decide itself what information is bogus, and it gets to exercise a wide ranging powers of censorship, right? So it also compel the intermediaries to take down posts deemed as fake or false. So for example, imagine a case, if a particular intermediary have information, if a particular intermediary hosts some content, okay, it hosts some content on its site, then the fact check unit will intervene, the fact check unit will intervene, and this fact check unit may flag this particular piece of content is fake news. Okay, then the government will direct the intermediary to take down the information, even if the information is anti-establishment, even if the information criticizes the government on government policies programs, then also there are chances that the fact check unit may flag this information as fake information, thereby effectively curbing the dissent against the government, and it also amounts to the violation of the fundamental rights. It also amounts to the violation of fundamental rights of freedom of speech and expression. So we have understood the amendments made to the IT rules 2021 and also the consequences. So now let's try and understand the IT rules first. Okay, so this is actually the basis what is the actual basis of these IT rules. Okay, so the actual basis of IT rules is Information Technology Act 2000. As per the Information Technology Act, the IT rules were framed in the year 2021. Okay, now what is a safe harbor? Earlier we have discussed that the intermediaries who host the fake information will will be withdrawn. I mean, they will not be given the safe harbor, or the existing safe harbor will be removed. Okay, just understand what is safe harbor. So, Section 79 of the Information Technology Act provides a safe harbor, and safe harbor effectively means it is granting immunity to intermediaries so long as these entities observe due diligence in discharging their duties under the law. Okay, so Information Technology Act 2000 provides Section 79. Section 79 is about safe harbor. Okay, so safe harbor is legal immunity to intermediary. Okay, so this means that if an intermediary, even if the platform hosts fake news, then the platform will be protected from any legal action. That is legal immunity, or that is safe harbor. But the recently amended IT rules says that if a particular platform, or if a particular intermediary hosts fake news, then their safe harbor will be removed or withdrawn. Okay, so you understood safe harbor. Now try to understand intermediary also. See, these terms are very important: the IT rules, safe harbor, and intermediary, because the entire issue revolves on these aspects, and these issues are also important for prelims exam. So therefore, please carefully listen to IT rules, safe harbor, and intermediary. So what is an intermediary? Intermediary is any person who receives, stores, transmits electronic records. Okay, so any person who receives, stores, transmits electronic records, and it would include internet service providers. So there are several internet service providers in India. So search engines like Google, a search engine, and social media platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook. So all these agencies, or all these uh, networking sites come under the social media platforms, or the intermediaries as per the IT rules. Okay, so here a set of examples are given for intermediaries. For example, WhatsApp is an intermediary, Twitter is an intermediary, and Facebook is also a intermediary, right? So why, I mean, what are the problems with the newly issued IT rules? Why they are being opposed as against the fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution? Because these rules are issued through an executive order. This is not passed through, this does not have a legislative sanction. This is just issued through an executive order. This is an executive diktat. Because this is largely, because of this is an executive diktat, and this also considered as anti rights, or it is also considered as a new assault on liberty. We also discussed how it it will have a chilling effect on the fundamental rights. So therefore, this is considered as a new assault on our liberty. Okay, so the IT rules restrictions flow not through a legislation. Okay, so the newly issued restrictions are not flows through a legislation, but merely through an executive diktats. Okay, so they just flow through an executive diktats, and they have no legislative backing, and it amounts to the violation of substantive constitutional guarantees. So, what are the guarantees given in the Constitution, and what are the rights which are violated by the IT Rules 2023? IT Rules Amendment 2023. Okay, so now this let's understand this. Article 19(1)(a) of the Indian Constitution. So it grants every citizen right to freedom of speech and expression. Okay, so Article 19(1)(a) grants every citizen right to freedom of speech and expression. However, the right to freedom of speech and expression is not an absolute right. Okay, this is not an absolute right. It is subjected to reasonable restrictions. Okay, it is subjected to reasonable restrictions. So what are those reasonable restrictions? The reasonable restrictions are also provided under Article 19(2) of the Constitution. Okay, so based on these grounds, the state can restrict the right to freedom of speech and expression. So let's try and understand those grounds. The grounds include the interests of the sovereignty and integrity of India. Okay, and next, the security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, public order, decency, morality, and contempt of court, defamation, or incitement to an offense. So these are some reasonable grounds. Okay, see, these are some reasonable grounds based on which Article 19(1)(a), that is freedom of speech and expression, can be limited through a legislation. Okay, but what is the problem with the IT rules, newly issued IT rules? So the problem with newly issued IT rules is fake news and misinformation are not actually the grounds. Fake news and misinformation are not actually the grounds which have been mentioned under Article 19(2). Okay, so you can nowhere find fake news and misinformation as a grounds to limit Article 19(1)(a), that is right to freedom of speech and expression. So therefore, this is invalid. The newly issued IT rules are invalid or against constitutional provisions. Okay, because they are taking away right to freedom of speech and expression. Because uh, if a particular piece of information is proven to be false or has a direct bearing on any of the grounds mentioned here, any of the grounds stipulated in Article 19, so such speech can be limited through a law. So no doubt, if any speech or any content uh, have a bearing on any of these grounds, then that information must be limited, or that content or that right must be limited. But however, the center or the executive categorizing content as fake news, misinformation gives a wider scope, for the executive to categorize the anti-establishment information, content, and the dissent also as fake news and misinformation, thereby significantly curtailing the rights and the liberties of the people. Okay, so the IT rules confer the fact check unit limitless powers to decide what information is false. Okay, the fact check unit set up by the government have limitless powers to decide what information is false. So they can categorize uh, any information they want as fake information and misinformation, and they can direct the intermediary to take down that particular information. Now, along with these arguments, let's also understand the Shreya Singhal versus Union of India judgment 2015. See, this judgment is also a very important for both prelims and mains examination perspective. So this judgment is regarding the Information Technology Act 2000. Okay, so the Information Technology Act 2000. So in this judgment, Supreme Court says that the arbitrary powers of the law enforcement agencies to sumoto to take up or to arrest anyone, uh, considering that the particular piece of information is following any of these grounds. Okay, so in this judgment, the Supreme Court says that the Supreme Court struck down Article 6, Section 66A of the IT Act. Okay, so in this judgment, the Supreme Court struck down Section 66A of the IT Act and also held that the law limits speech, whatever law made by either the legislature or the executive, which limits the speech can neither be vague or overbroad. Okay, so if a particular piece of legislation or an executive order and that limits the speech uh, of individuals, that takes away the liberties of individual, should not be vague and should not be overbroad in the case of IT rules. So in the case of IT rules also, it is a vague and it is also a very broad. So therefore the Shreya Singhal judgment of the Supreme Court also applies to these IT rules. Okay, so what is the way forward for this? What will be the way forward for this? So the way forward will be a comprehensive parliamentary legislation on this matter. Okay, so there should be a comprehensive parliamentary legislation on this matter. It should be emanating from such a process. Okay, for example, uh, when you bring a comprehensive parliamentary legislation on what you consider as fake news or fake information, that effectively links or limits limitations on the speech to the grounds stipulated in Article 19 subclass 2. See, when a parliament makes a law, then that takes into consideration the grounds, the reasonable restrictions which are already provided under Article 19(2) of the Constitution. So therefore, the IT rules should be brought through a legislation, because it would have ensured that the government cannot act as an arbiter of its own case. What does this mean? This means that the government itself decide what is a fake news or misinformation. Okay, so in this case the government itself acting as an arbiter, and if it is an anti-establishment, if the content or the information is anti-establishment, and taking down the information as fake news. If a proper lawfully enacted statute, that is law, would ensure whether a directive to remove misinformation is the only solution to fake news or any other solution for this. Okay, so if there is any legislation on this, then the legislation will comprehensively look at various options, and solutions also. Okay, so whether taking down information is the only solution or there any alternatives available for this, restrictive alternatives available for this, will be uh, looked into by the legislation. The amendments to the IT rules are not only a product of pure executive intrusion. This is a purely an executive intrusion into the liberties, fundamental rights of individuals. They will also have a chilling consequences. On individual liberty. Okay, so intermediaries faced with a threat of prosecution will naturally, for example, there are several intermediaries like Facebook, Twitter. Because of facing consequences, they generally remove information, they generally remove content uh, from their site after it was flagged by the fact check unit as fake information. So this will have a very chilling effect or chilling consequences on the fundamental rights of individuals. So therefore a comprehensive parliamentary legislation on this matter will be a right solution for this. Okay, so this is all about the IT rules amendment 2023. So the next news article is India UAE cooperation to sow regional food security. Okay, we all know that UAE is a very important partner for India. Okay, a very important partner for India, and UAE is one of the top five top 5 trading partners for India. And India has also been enjoying the surplus balance of trade with UAE. Okay, and UAE is also very important for India with the perspective of the oil imports and Indian workers working in UAE and remittances. Okay, so recently India and UAE also signed a free trade agreement. Okay, so these two countries also signed a free trade agreement. However, in this article, the UAE has been mooting an idea of India UAE food security partnership. Okay, India UAE food security partnership. India is traditionally known as a country with a rich farming experience, okay, rich agriculture experience. India is a food exporter to the world. India also provide food in the case of any humanitarian, crisis. For example, India sends 50,000 tons of wheat, 50,000 tons of wheat to Afghanistan because it has been facing the humanitarian crisis. So, therefore, in order to ensure the food security for UAE, in order to ensure food security of UAE, the government of UAE has been focusing on improving its cooperation with India on food security front. Okay, so in this context, let's try and understand this news article also. So this is very very important for mains exam point of view. Okay, so the India UAE food security partnership. So United Arab Emirates, whose food security has been built on imports. Okay, so United Arab Emirates is located in the Middle East. Okay, located in the Middle East or West Asia. So it traditionally dependent on imports for its food needs. Okay, so from the global markets, it generally import foods. Is now focusing on twin objectives of food access, so they're focusing on access to food and readiness to confront supply chain crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic times, and also during the Russia-Ukraine war. Food crisis is a major challenge because both Russia and Ukraine together contribute their known as wheat basket of the world. So therefore, the world has been facing the food crisis and the supply chain crisis with respect to food. So therefore, UAE found a new partner, India. Okay, now India is the second largest food producer after China. So India is the second largest food producer and is an essential partner for UAE's ambition to strengthen food security. Okay, India will be an essential partner in the UAE's ambition to strengthen food security. The India UAE Food Security Partnership stands to benefit from multiple points of convergence. Okay, so India UAE Food Security Partnership will stands to benefit from multiple points of convergence. Okay, so we will also understand what are those points of convergence between these two countries. But first, understand what are India's capabilities in ensuring or supplying food to the world. Okay, so supplying food to the world, what are the existing capabilities of India? India have many capabilities in terms of a robust agriculture network and agricultural production productivity. So in this context, let's understand India built its status as a global agri-export powerhouse. Okay, so India is built its status as a global agri-export powerhouse because we export sugar, we export wheat, we export rice, and along with these, we also export several agri culture related products. So therefore, India is traditionally known as agri export powerhouse because India has a vast tracts of arable land. Okay, so arable land is vast tracts of cultivable land. Okay, a vast tracts of cultivable land and a highly favorable climate. So India is located in the tropical region. Okay, India is located in the tropical region, and the monsoon climate. The monsoon climate will provide necessary and adequate rainfall for Indian agriculture to thrive in and sustain. Okay, and a large and growing food production and processing sector. India has a large food production and processing sector. So these are the advantages or the capabilities of India to provide food to the world. So, along with serving global markets with its diversified agri-produce, so we have discussed what are the diversified agri-produce that include sugar, rice, wheat, cotton. So diversified agri-produce, it serve the global markets. India has in recent years acted as a humanitarian provider of food to developing countries. Okay, so India supply wheat and other food uh, items to global south, and even we have a great example of India sending humanitarian assistance of 50,000 tons of wheat to the people of Afghanistan. So therefore, India is also an humanitarian provider of food to developing countries, and this effectively demonstrating the awareness of its evolving role in advancing regional and global security. So therefore, India have a large capability to play a crucial role or key role in regional and global food security. Okay, we have discussed all the major advantages or the capabilities of India. So along with these capabilities, India has also made a major budgetary outlays towards setting up massive food parks. Okay, so food parks will make the food processing sector more robust, more resilient, and export oriented. It creates more employment opportunities, right? And with due emphasis on modern supply chain management. So the supply chain include right from the farm gate to the retail outlet. Okay, so India have the modern supply chain management network. Okay, so this network manages the food right from the farm gate up to the retail outlet. We already know that India have the targeted public distribution system. Okay, the PDS, targeted public distribution system. Through the targeted public distribution system, India provide 800 million citizens subsidized food grains. Okay, through targeted public distribution system, India provide nearly 800 million citizens with subsidized food grains, and uh, it is the world's largest food subsidy program. Okay, so the PDS program is the world's largest public distribution system program. Okay, so along with these programs, India has also launched a scheme for holistic nutrition, that is Poshan Abhiyan. Poshan Abhiyan primarily targets or to try to improve the nutrition, try to improve the nutrition situation in the country, with a special focus on pregnant, lactating mothers, and adolescent girls and children under 5. Okay, children under age 5, with a special focus of Poshan Abhiyan. So this is also world's largest nutrition program for children and women. Okay, so along with this, now India is a presidency of G20. We already know that India holds a presidency of G20 this year. So therefore, India has also been effectively promoting the consumption and farming of millets. We all know that millets are climate resilient, they are sustainable, they require less irrigation, they also require less amount of fertilizers and pesticides. So therefore, millet cultivation is more sustainable and less capital intensive. Okay, so it require very less inputs. So that demonstrates the resilience focus that India offers to the global food security dialogue. Okay, so to the global food security dialogue, India has been setting up an example, a bright example, by focusing enhanced focus on the millet cultivation and consumption. Okay, so apart from this, we have discussed all the capabilities of India. Now let's discuss how UAE wanted to cooperate with India. So UAE wanted to cooperate with India in this regard, ensuring food security or making Indian farming agriculture sector more resilient and robust. It should supply food not just to UAE but to the entire world. India to become a major food supplier to the entire world. Okay, so how UAE will help India in this regard? Firstly, understand India brings to the table incredible wealth of food sector. So India have an incredible wealth of food sector experience and the ability to operationalize the world's largest food supply chains. Okay, so India has the ability to operationalize world's largest food supply chain and the food sector experience also. However, we also know that the I2U2 summit I2U2 summit is also known as the Western Quad. In this summit, India, Israel, UAE, and United States are member countries. So this summit was held in July last year. The UAE committed 2 billion in investment towards constructing food parks in India. So UAE is shown interest by coming forward to invest 2 billion US dollars in the food parks in India. That those food parks will set up in Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. While signing the food security corridor in the comprehensive economic partnership agreement, India and UAE signed a comprehensive free trade agreement, comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So in the comprehensive economic partnership agreement, both countries also signed a food security corridor. Okay, so both these countries have also signed the food security corridor, and this food security corridor will envision India to become a global food value chain. So not just UAE, but the focus will be on the entire world. India to become a global food value chain. Okay, so this food security corridor. So what are the major benefits of this food security corridor? Food security corridor, which was signed as part of the comprehensive economic partnership agreement between UAE and India. For UAE, the benefits go beyond maintaining and diversifying food reserves. Okay? For UAE, the benefit includes maintaining and diversifying its food reserves because India send its food supplies to UAE as part of the food security corridor. Along with that, the trade linkages could enable Emirates to leverage its strategically placed location. We all know that where is Emirates, United Arab Emirates is located. Imagine uh, this is Oman. Here you can find UAE. Okay, this is uh, Persian Gulf. This is Saudi Arabia. So UAE could use its strategically placed location between Asia and Europe. Okay, Asia and Europe to serve India's food export gateway to West Asia on the one side and Africa on the other side. Okay, so further beyond. So it will help not just UAE, but it will also help India to diversify or to further increase its exports to West Asia and the Africa region. Okay, so what will be the possible benefits of this partnership between the food security partnership between India and UAE. The benefits include there's much that India stands to gain from the UAE's private sector projects. They span from the agricultural sector to food processing sector. Okay, so UAE is ready to invest, especially the private investments. So the private investments in agriculture sector and the food processing sector will further aid making Indian agriculture sector more robust and resilient. Okay, and those projects will generate lakhs of non-farm agri jobs. So they create, the private investment create lakhs of non-farm agriculture jobs while enabling farmers to discover better prices for their products. Imagine if there are a diverse markets, if there are diverse markets and there has been a demand for Indian agri products, then it will help farmers to discover better prices for their produces, and it will bolster UAE's infrastructure capabilities. The partnership will bolster UAE's infrastructure capabilities, and India's agricultural products will have more resilient, diversified pathways to global marketplaces. Okay, so we already discussed that Indian agricultural products will have more resilient and diversified pathways to global marketplace. Now, India's G20 presidents offers an opportunity for both India and UAE to showcase viable strategies and frameworks. So that can force basis of food security, especially for the global south. Okay, we know that where is global south is located. Global south includes the South America, African region, and entire South Asia and Southeast Asia. Okay, so this is Global South. Global South include most of the countries which are either poor, developing, underdeveloped countries. Okay, so now under the G20 presidency, both UAE and India will work together to showcase viable strategies and frameworks that can forge basis of food security in the global south. Okay, in the global south. So this is all about this news article. So let's also discuss the next news article. So this news article is particularly regarding Russia India ties. Okay, Russia India ties. So we already know that Russia is a major defense supplier. Russia is a major defense supplier of India. Okay, so major defense supplier of India. It is also special and privileged partner for India. Okay, both these countries have been enjoying special and privileged partnership. So recently, uh, Russia-Ukraine, last year, Russia-Ukraine war broke out. So in February. So however, Russia described this war as a special military operation. Special military operation. So however, the after the war broke out, several Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia. Okay, so these countries have imposed sanctions on Russia. So after sanctions were imposed on Russia, Russia looked towards India and China. Okay, so to come out of these sanctions, because China and India, those countries which did not paid enough heed to the sanctions. Okay, they did not follow these sanctions imposed by the West and continued to trade with Russia. So in this context, let's try and understand what this particular piece of article is saying about the India Russia relationship. Okay, so there has been a growing and balancing India Russia trade ties, because recently Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Denis um, Manturovs visited India. Okay, so he says that there has been a growing and balancing India-Russia trade ties, because we observe that. particularly after the war, the Russia-Ukraine war and Western sanction, multi there has been a surge in bilateral trade between Russia and India. Okay, so the trade has surged, or trade has increased 2.6 times the past year. Okay, so the trade has been increased 2.6 times and also reached to $45 billion. So the trade between both these countries have reached the $45 billion, surpassing the 2025 target. Okay, so these two countries have set a trade target, and now the trade between these two countries have surpassed these set targets. However, the problem between India and Russian trade is huge trade imbalance. Okay, so the trade balance is in favor of Russia because of its oil exports to India. Okay, because of its oil exports to India, Russia has been enjoying a positive trade balance in its favor. So therefore, uh, the focus of India and Russia will be reducing or narrowing down the existing trade balance over a period of time. However, both these countries have also discussing on free trade agreement. Okay, so India and Russia have also been discussing a free trade agreement between India and Eurasian Economic Union. Okay, so Eurasian Economic Union largely includes Russia. Okay, so these countries, uh, but this has been launched in the year 2017. Now, signing of a free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union or Russia could further improve trade, which has been lagging behind in the bilateral ties. Because when it comes to India Russia trade, it is mostly dominated by defense, nuclear energy, and space cooperation. Okay, so the trade is mostly dominated in these three areas. Not, for example, IT is not covered, and manufacturing, equipment, electronics not covered in the trade, but it is mostly dominated by defense, nuclear, and space cooperation. So, therefore, the focus will be on diversifying the areas under the free trade agreement. Okay, so in this context, the relations of India with Russia will also be shaped by Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, so the impetus in trade and effort to balance imports and exports with an important partner are welcome, but it is hard to ignore the circumstances surrounding these developments because it has been more than 1 year. Russia started its special military operation against Ukraine. Okay, so therefore, India should not remain silent on the Ukraine issue. It should it should take an active stand on this issue, and it should empathize with Ukraine. So therefore, that will also help India balance its ties with West. Okay, so this is what this article has been saying. However, since Russia's war in Ukraine began last year, February, the Western sanctions drastically cut Russian exports. Okay, so earlier, natural gas was the largest export of European Union import natural gas from Russia. But after sanctions, European Union countries have significantly cut down the imports of natural gas. So after the sanctions on Russia, Russia heavily dependent on India and other countries like China that have joined that these countries have not joined sanctions to export resources. So therefore, Russia has dependent on these countries. Okay, so apart from that, we also been thinking about or talking discussing about the free trade agreement between Eurasian Economic Union and Russia. Both countries have been discussing this. So the free trade agreement will help or could deepen the existing bilateral commercial ties between these two countries. And they have been flourishing since the breakout of Russia-Ukraine war, particularly in the area of hydrocarbons. Okay, particularly in the area of hydrocarbons. And Russia traditionally India's top source of military hardware. Okay, so India's top source of military hardware. And Russia recently displaced Iran. Earlier Iran was the top supplier of oil to India, but now Russia displaced Iraq as a top supplier of oil, crude oil. Okay, so now before war that began in February last year, India bought very little oil, just 0.2% of India's total oil imports were sourced from Russia. But now it is around 28% of India's total oil imports. So there has been a significant surge in imports from Russia. So because of this reason, there has been a huge trade imbalance. Okay, huge trade imbalance between Russia and India. However, Russia's efforts to improve trade with India form part of its strategy to help evade impact of Western sanctions. So Russia is looking to improve its ties with India or build a strong trade ties with India is part of uh, evasion of sanctions which have been imposed by the West. Okay, so it has been boosting its commerce with Asian giants including China and India. Okay, so Russia has also been trying to increase or maintain cooperation with other South Asian countries. The examples include agreeing to settle payments in yuan for building nuclear power plant in Bangladesh. Okay, so in order to build a nuclear power plant in Bangladesh, uh, it has agreed, Russia has agreed to settle payments in yuan. Yuan is a currency of China. Okay, and secondly, discussing discounted oil exports to Pakistan. So these are examples of increasing engagement of Russia to maintain close cooperation with South Asian countries. So here you can see the location of Russia and the countries which are bordering Russia. Okay, so you can clearly see this is Kazakhstan, this is Mongolia, China, India, Pakistan. Pakistan, Afghanistan, they are not bordering countries, but you just observe the location of Russia. Okay, so there has been international north-south transport corridor. Okay, international north-south transport corridor that links Russia with India. Okay, so this is all about India and Russia ties. So the next very important news article is India's population to edge ahead of China's by mid 2023, says UN. See, recently United Nations Population Fund have come up with a report. Okay, so this report says that by the mid 2023, India will overtake China with around 142.86 crore population. Okay, so India will have around 142.86 crore population by the mid of 2023, overtaking China's 142.57 crore population. Okay, so contrary to the alarm bells, population trends points to the slower growth and aging societies. So aging societies is invariably means that there has been low birth rates. Okay, there has been low birth rates among major developed countries in China, Japan, even in several Scandinavian countries. Scandinavian countries. So those countries have been experiencing the aging population. Okay. So aging population is a sign where the country will not have adequate workforce. The country will not have adequate workforce or youth to sustain its economic growth trajectory. Okay, so aging societies is a particularly a concern, and there has been a slower growth rate in population also. The family planning targets can lead to gender-based discrimination. Unplanned, unscientific family planning. Unplanned, unscientific family planning can lead to the gender-based discrimination or sex selective abortions. Okay, so therefore, uh, unplanned and unscientific family planning should be curbed or prevented. Okay, so here you can see that United States in that report says that about 2.9 million people more than China by the mid of 2023. India will have more than 2.9 million people by the mid of 2023. So please remember which agency publishes this report. This report is published by United Nations Population Fund. Okay, so this report is published by United Nations Population Fund. However, this report says that India was not expected to become the most populous nation until later this decade. Okay, but it happened quickly due to drop in Chinese fertility rate. So there has been a significant uh, drop in Chinese fertility rate. So the main so China following a policy which led to a lower fertility rate within China. Okay, so among the BRICS nations, India have the lowest fertility rate. Okay, so you can see here India's total population next to India, China, and then Brazil, Russia, South Africa. Okay, so this indicates that uh, India has overtaken China as the world's most populous nation. This is UN data. Okay, so India's population surpassed 1.428 billion, slightly higher than China's 1.425 billion people. Okay, so this is data from United Nations World Population Fund. So United Nations Population Fund says that 25% of India's population in the age group of 0 to 14 years and 18% of India's population in the age group of 10 to 19 years and 26% of uh, are in the age bracket of 10 to 24 years. So this indicates that India has a huge demographic dividend. Okay, India has a huge demographic dividend. Okay, however, it comes up with the huge challenges. Okay, it comes with a huge challenges. The challenges include half of India's population is under 30. So as of now, half of the India's population is under 30. So therefore every year around 12 million people enter into the market every year. So therefore creating jobs for these people who are entering into the market is a major challenge on the part of India. So along with this, use of family planning as a tool for achieving fertility targets, for example, uh, achieving the fertility rates or lower fertility rate, and using family planning as a technique. Global experience shows that family planning targets can lead to gender-based discrimination. Okay, and it will also lead to harmful practices like parental sex determination, leading to sex selective abortions. So family planning as a tool of achieving fertility rate have several problems. Okay, so besides this, you can see image India's demographic dividend. So 68 percentage of working age population. So working age population is under 15 to 64 years. So they are considered as work population in the working age. So approximately 142.86 crore total population by the in the year 2022. So this is India's demographic data. So along with this, Union Cabinet gives a node for 6,003 crore quantum mission. So what is a quantum mission? So quantum mission is, you know, a quantum applications, right? So it have a wide variety of applications, right, from communication, satellites, and computing, faster computing, supercomputing. So therefore, it will have a wide variety of applications. Okay, so let's try and understand the quantum computing. So Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved 6,000 crore national quantum mission. Okay, so that will fund research and development of quantum computing technology and associated applications. Okay, So this fund will help research and development in quantum computing technology and associated applications. So quantum computers are work in progress globally. So especially to exploit the properties of atom, which are only explainable by the principles of quantum mechanics. So okay, the quantum mechanics uses the principles of atom to derive a wide variety of applications from the atom. Okay, so the promise is reliable class of computers that work several times faster than the existing supercomputers. Okay, so with the supercomputing mission, we will develop computers that will work several times faster than the speediest machines of today. So also facilitate exponentially secure communication networks. So secure communication networks are very crucial for any country, especially in the backdrop of increasing cybersecurity or cyber crimes. Okay, with a wide applications. So the mission was budgeted at 8,000 crore in the Union Budget 2023. So Union Budget 2023 allocated 8,000 crore rupees for National Quantum Mission. Okay, so this National Quantum Mission will involve developing intermediate scale quantum computers with 2050 physical qubits. Okay, for example, normal computers calculate or work based on bits, but with respect to quantum uh, computers, it works in qubits. Okay, it works in qubits. So in 3 years it will be 50,100 physical qubits, and in 5 years it will be 5 lakh 1,000 physical qubits in 8 years. Okay, so this says that just like bits are 1 and 0, the basic unit for by which computers process information. Qubits or quantum bits are the units of process by quantum computers. So quantum computers process information through qubits and quantum bits. So other ambitions include developing satellite based secure quantum communication between ground stations over a range of 2000 kilometers within India. So this also include long-term secure communication with other countries and intercity quantum key distribution over 2000 kilometers. Okay, so the quantum communication and quantum technologies will also have applications in navigation system. Okay, so this mission particularly help in developing magnetometers with high sensitivity in atomic systems, atomic clocks, atomic systems, precision timing, communication, and navigation. So that will help in India's space missions. Okay, so that will help in India's space missions to achieve more and more accuracy, and also help in weather forecasting. Okay, so will also help in weather forecasting with more accuracy, and also earth observation. Okay, so these are the major applications of the quantum technologies and National Quantum Mission. So the next important news article is conservationists in Sri Lanka slam plan to export monkeys to China. Okay, so there's a monkey in China. So the name of the monkey is Sri Lankan Toku macaws. Okay, Sri Lankan Toku macaws. This is a golden brown colored monkey. This is endemic to Sri Lanka itself. Okay, so this monkey is endemic to Sri Lanka itself. So, and what is endemic means? Endemic means it found in one particular ecosystem, ecosystem. Okay, so for example, if a particular species is endemic to Western Ghats, that means it found only in Western Ghats, nowhere else. In the same way, the Toku macaws are also found or also endemic to Sri Lanka only. So they are golden brown colored monkeys. Okay, so the island nation is looking to export monkeys to China. Why it is looking to export monkeys to China? It wanted to get rid of certain crop destroying species. So these monkeys have been destroying crops in Sri Lanka. So therefore, the farmers reported to the authorities. So keeping in mind the situation, the Sri Lankan government has decided to export these monkeys to China. Okay. Uh, However, the authorities are considering export of at least 1 lakh monkeys, to Sri Lanka. The Chinese company is also paying for the monkeys. Okay, so the Chinese company is also paying for the monkeys export, because the company says that it will use the monkeys for breeding purposes. Okay, it will use the monkeys for breeding purposes. So Sri Lankan farmers have voiced concern about crop damage and consequential financial losses due to this topi macaws. Okay, you just remember Sri Lanka has a proposal to export monkeys to China, and the name of the monkey is Toku macaws, and they are just endemic to Sri Lanka. Okay, they are just endemic to Sri Lanka. You just remember this thing in this news article. Okay, there are apprehensions that these monkeys will be used in testing labs. Okay, so conservationists have also have apprehensions that these monkeys could end up in testing laboratories abroad. Okay, Sri Lanka currently has about 3 lakh Toku macaws. They are an endangered species of IUCN list of species. So in the IUCN category, they are categorized as endangered. Okay, this is all about the endangered macaws. So we have discussed all important and all relevant news articles in this discussion. Okay, thank you.